Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video. You join me in beautiful, somewhere just outside of Napa, California with this, the new Audi Q8 e-tron. Now a lot of you guys know we actually own the current generation e-tron, and in this video I'm not actually able to tell you how this drives. There's a US media program, there's an embargo for a couple days, maybe a week, something like that. So I have another video coming a few days after this to tell you all about the driving enhancements and differences from the earlier e-tron to the current one. But in this video, I want to take you on a tour of pricing, of specs, and actually show you the material differences from the last generation e-tron to now the Q8 e-tron. I also want to tell you what the naming convention means and which version I recommend that you go with if you're looking for this. I already know some of our viewers who are going to probably be commenting on this video. I've seen your Twitter post. You've taken delivery of your Q8 e-tron starting tomorrow. And so it's happening now. They're in the US. So in this video, let's go through all of the changes for 2024 for the Audi Q8 e-tron. And here it is. This is the new 2024 Q8 Sportback e-tron Quattro. You have to say it in that order. And this, again, like I mentioned, is the Sportback. The e-tron will still be available in the SUV trim, and Audi reckons about 80% of all e-trons will be the SUV models. And I think that's a good thing, because I'm not sure what you gain with the Sportback. Slight efficiency, of course. This version, if you spec it on the Aero wheels, gets an EPA rated range just about 300 miles, which is a huge increase from last year. We'll talk about what they did for that. But I think you give up some cargo capacity and just styling. I much prefer the full-size e-tron, the SUV version. So that's why I'm really glad that we're able to test the Sportback here in California. Audi's actually sending us a full-size SUV straight from this event to Colorado for us to do some testing, our e-tron versus the new one. And I thought, well, hey, we're probably not going to have the opportunity to play around with the Sportback again, so let's at least test out the Sportback here on the first drive event. So this one, you'll notice, has a little S badge here. It's not the full SQ8. That will come towards the end of the year, the tri-motor version. You and I have driven before on YouTube the Audi e-tron S, and now it's going to be called the SQ8 e-tron, the tri-motor 500 horsepower crazy thing. Absolutely love that machine. Torque vectoring on the rear axle. Nice size trunk, no change really dimensionally from the last model. We're talking 0.1, 0.2 inches here or there, just little shaping things. But ultimately, let's first start about what's going on for the 2024 model year. Well, the biggest change that you guys will notice is I keep saying Q8 e-tron over the regular e-tron. And you'll also notice, and this is going to happen on Audi models going into the future, they're etched into the side here. And so you're always going to know what model you're next to just by glancing over and see this laser etching into the B-pillar. So that is pretty neat for sure. I'm actually here at a ChargePoint charging station because Audi had us on a drive loop, and I'm not able to tell you how this drives today, but what I can say is I did typical out-of-spec driving, and Audi expected people to get back to the hotel at 20 or 30% state of charge. My prediction was minus 20 or minus 30% state of charge on arrival. So I decided to duck in here and juice it up. That way we don't leave a car. Well, A, I don't get stranded, and B, I don't give Audi a car back that's dead. So I'm going to charge it up pretty high, so there's no issue on their part. You know, a lot of the people working these events don't necessarily know EVs like we do. So I pulled in here at 1% state of charge, and you'll see all that during the driving video. But just awesome stuff as usual. Typical low state of charge arrival. Okay, so what's different? We have the Q8 badge. The reason there's a Q8 badge is because Audi is calling this the top model. Very similar to Q5, Q7, Q8 combustion. We now have this on the same level as the Q8 combustion. Now keep in mind that still leaves room for a larger SUV than this, because technically Q7 is bigger than Q8. So I really hope we see a 3-row electric SUV at some point, but essentially this is top luxury. It has all of the good stuff in there, the nice materials, the double glazing on the windows, all the extra quality that they can throw in this thing. And we've always known this about Fat e-tron. That's what the nickname for this car is it's just a bank vault. The doors close so tight. The materials are really great. The build quality is incredible. Everything about this car is just next level quality. And you can take a look inside this beautiful specification here. I'll walk you through the specification in a bit after I run through some of the differences. So that is great. So I like that they're bringing it in line with their full lineup. Audi will go fully electric in the early 2030s. Actually, I believe 2025 or 2026 onward, something similar, something close to now. Every new model in the Audi lineup to be introduced will be fully electric. They're almost pioneering the electric way for the Volkswagen Group brands, and they're all in. So I love to see it. They're focusing on reusable, second life operation of the batteries. There's so much they're working on, talking with some of the team, and we've come up with some really neat video ideas to show you guys into the future at some point. So a couple things I want to at least take you on a tour of would be the front of the e-tron. And the Q8 has a new styling package up front. You can see it's got larger air dams here, a body matched grille up front, these sort of flat Audi logos, which I don't think look as good as the last gen. These ones are in anthracite because this is a launch edition, a first edition car. And yeah, I actually think the front of it definitely looks more modern. It looks newer. It looks great. Everyone loves the way this thing looks, including me. But I think it's probably not quite as big of a change as you would expect. If you're driving down the road and you see a Q8, you probably wouldn't even notice it's different, especially from the back. Looking from back here, it looks almost identical to the previous model, except for the Q8 badging right here. So it's really hot out here, so let's run through some technical differences and then I'll go inside and give you more impressions. First of all, the DC fast charging performance has been increased. The peak power level is now 170 kilowatts, up from 150. Now, we've seen a little bit more than 150 on our e-tron, but it just holds it all the way to 80%. This new battery pack is way bigger. It is, instead of 86 kilowatt hours usable in our car, it's now 106 kilowatt hours usable. So 20 kilowatt hours more battery storage than our existing car. So that's really the point of this life cycle update, if you will. The real, Gen 2 e-tron is the big battery, and that is awesome. 114 kilowatt hour gross, 106 usable. And that is a massive increase. You guys know we love our e-tron. It's Alyssa's favorite car. You can't pry it from her. And but the range is rough, especially in the winter time. And here, this could really help solve it. I was talking to some of the engineers and they were saying that this has significantly less cobalt capacity than the outgoing model. What that means for cold weather charging performance and for charging up top, well, we need to do more testing, because cobalt is sort of not a great material to have in your car, so they reduced it by a ton. However, it is a little bit of magic where if you put it with your typical, NMC chemistry and you have a ton of cobalt, they charge fast in the cold, they have better, performance throughout the life cycle of the battery pack. Like, cobalt's a bit of magic, you just kind of don't want it. And so I wonder if this will actually have a worse time charging in the cold. There's still no battery preconditioning manually on this car like our existing e-tron. The regular e-tron didn't even need it. So a lot more to test here with this battery, but it is much bigger. And again, the charging curve is no longer flat to 80%. It has a pretty good charging curve, still probably better than iX, the curve overall, and definitely better than Tesla Model X, but I'm not totally sure. We'll have to do full charge curve testing in Colorado and compare the cars side by side. What else is new to tell you? Well, on the topic of charging, there's now a dual port charging option. I'm not going to the other side just because there's a guy over there. I don't want to bug him. But you can now get the same, sort of charge port on the other side, AC only, very similar to Taycan, and earlier e-trons had this as well. But when you option that second charge port, it becomes part of the Audi charging package. I want to say it's just under $2,000, and it gives you 80 amp onboard charger. So I love to see that, using dual chargers basically. The standard car's 48 amps, this one's 80, you can go up to 19.2, 19.6 kilowatt charging. That's gonna be awesome. Inside, there's really no differences. Take a look. All the materials, slightly different color change. This gray interior has this orange piping. Audi tells me it's to reference the orange from high voltage cabling. I think it looks incredible. Really one of the nicest interior color combinations I've seen in a long time. It's tasteful, it's nice, and I just love this high quality orange stitching throughout. Really great. Also have the shades, same climate controls as the outgoing model, USB-C ports everywhere, really nice glass roof. I have the shade closed right now because it's really hot. There's also a front trunk, which is the same as the outgoing model. So I'll show you this really quick before I tell you some more differences. Pricing wise, this car starts in the $70,000 range and can go up close to 100. There will also be a faster and spicier S model launching at some point. So you can see some power electronics here and the very small same front trunk out of the existing car. This is exactly what we use ours for on our e-tron, just charging cable storage. Nothing super fancy, but who's going to turn away more storage space? In terms of lighting, this particular one's optioned with the full Audi digital matrix, just not lasers, but digital matrix LED lights. They do the full, combination of blocking out other cars and putting your navigation directions right on the road in front of you, but unfortunately a lot of that is locked down for US regulations, so I think that's a bit of a shame. Okay, really hot. Let's jump inside. Nice thing about e-tron, I've left the climate control running, so it's ice cold in here. Love to see it. So we can select the car on, we can go here, loading the system, the noises play. And you'll notice from this view right here, it is identical to the outgoing model. And truly, there are no differences. The climate control works the same. The only thing that's different is this parking button, which we don't have Park Assist Plus on our e-tron currently. I don't know if it was on the newer ones, but ours doesn't have it. It's just a blank switch right there. But everything else is literally identical. This one is a prestige model, which means it has the massaging seats and the double glazing everywhere. And yeah, it feels really great throughout. I love that you get all the nerdy charging details here on the screen that you need to get. This car is a relatively high voltage 400 volt nominal pack, which means it's over 400 full. And here's the spec list of this particular one. You can see it's a 2024 Q8 Sportback S-Line e-tron Launch Edition. You have to say it in that order. But this one's $95,900. And you know what? I don't think there's really any other cars that can do what the e-tron can do. I want to talk about this in its competitive segment, comparing to Model X and iX, especially when I do the driving portion. I want to talk about that. But at least here in this video, I think we're going to keep it mostly to, just talking about the differences. So differences, new steering wheel here. No longer do you get the extra little bar. There's like a little extra bar here so you can put your hand in this corner. That's gone. The cruise control stock, for example, is slightly different and adapted, but not bad. I believe the functionality is the same. I'll talk about that when we do the driving review, but I don't think there's any differences there. In terms of the in-car menus, it's all fairly the same. They removed a couple extra menus to get into this charging one. There's still seemingly no way to set an AC charging limit, which I find a little bit odd. Yep, okay, that's just telling you what we're looking at. We're at 30% state of charge, up from 1% state of charge. It looks like the Kia left, so let me show you around the car on the outside a little bit more so we didn't get in his way. But wow. So the big question is, do we keep our current e-tron or do we upgrade to the Q8? And well, what are the benefits, for example? The benefits are the range. I mean, we're talking 20% more battery capacity, maybe slight efficiency improvements. We'll have to see. This car's never been that efficient. They've changed the motors slightly as well. So there's now 2 extra windings on the motors, 14 windings, I'm told, which should make it a little bit more efficient, hold its peak torque longer. It has the same 402 horsepower as the existing model with the boost function and everything. However, I'm told it should have a little bit better thermal longevity and it should have a little bit better efficiency while driving. I don't know, we'll have to see. So here's that secondary charging port right over here. Can't wait till we run them side by side in Colorado and actually see the efficiency increases SUV to SUV. We'll try and get the same wheel size on both and do a real scientific test. Could be kind of interesting. But you know, the big things really here would be the range. That's really it. Even the charging performance, looking at the charging curves Audi has given us, I don't think the curve is as good as the outgoing e-tron 55 with all the cobalt in the battery. And so our car, we love it because it's, you know, we get 200 miles in the summer, maybe 150 miles in the winter. However, we pull that thing to a fast charger and whoop, 30 minutes later, we're almost full. So this should still have a very good charging performance. We're talking the same 31 minutes, 10 to 80%. So I'm really excited to do the 10% challenge in this and the outgoing model. Everything else looks pretty similar. The three trims are Premium, Premium Plus, and Prestige. For the first model year, you also get this Launch Edition model. I would go for it. You get these 22-inch wheels that look incredible. I love the 22s on this thing. You can't get these wheels on the SUV, but I would swap them over. They just look the business, in my opinion. Best wheel option here. And of course, I'm excited to see the SQ8 when they put the wide fenders on it, just like they did with the e-tron S. That's going to be really freaking cool. So yeah, the big differences are a little bit of options and packages, the Q8 name, the much more range, slightly better charging, and then they have adapted the suspension and some bushings in the car to make, they claim, the steering a little bit sharper, the suspension handle a little bit differently. I can't tell you my impressions on that right now. That's just what Audi says. And so you'll have to wait for my driving review when that is able to be posted. But for now, let's jump inside. Final impressions, it's hot out here. Well, there you guys go, the new Q8 e-tron, and particularly this one in Sportback trim. Now, me personally, I would only consider SUV. I'm not a Sportback fan. I think it looks way worse. Some people think it looks way better. I think it depends maybe a little bit on spec. But if you like the Sportback, go Sportback. If you like the SUV, go SUV. I don't think you're giving up too much. There's a few things that the e-tron has always done that the competition has not been able to match. And that is, it's an Audi first. And there are some really nice Audi things, some intangible things about this car. The way the materials feel, the seating position being really low, the sound system, the MMI, all of this sort of Audi stuff that works very nicely. I mean, the main competitors for this car would be the Tesla Model X, of course, which is going to have a much better charging network to get you around. It's going to have driver assistance. That's awesome. We've done a lot of autopilot videos. It's going to have a lot of room, but it's not going to have the solidity or the quietness or all of this bank vault type feeling that this car has. And conversely, there's also the BMW iX, which is from another German automaker, which has a higher peak charging rate on a very similar sized battery pack. I don't know why the charging rate is so low in this particular car, 170 kilowatts. This is like old school. So the curve's got to make up for it. I can't wait to test that. But the iX doesn't have the seating position, the material feel, just the overall look and styling of this car. Certainly this just opening and closing the doors and being around it feels like actually a higher quality package than the iX, in my opinion. Now, my recommendation for most people is go iX, because I think that's probably a next generation platform and it can do a lot more things and the range is incredible that we've demonstrated. However, for us, for me, I've always been an e-tron lover. I've always had a thing for this car. It's been great. And I just don't see us switching to a Model X or an iX or anything. I see Alyssa keeping her e-tron or maybe upgrading to the Q8. So I'll have to drive it. We need to see how everything goes before we decide, yeah, let's upgrade to Q8 or let's wait for SQ8 e-tron to come. That could be an interesting one as well. But ultimately, the updates for this model year are small. On the outside, at least, everything is under the hood, if you will. The battery, the suspension changes, the motor changes. And so it's really a big technical update. And then they slap the Q8 badge on there. So I hope that tells you a little bit more about this car. I really wish I could tell you how it drives and all the nitty-gritty differences. And I will be able to when the embargo lifts. That'll be coming soon, as well as all of the testing out in Colorado. We're going to be running Q8 versus old school e-tron and really quantifying the upgrades. And that's when I think we'll truly make our determination whether or not we decide, yep, let's upgrade, or hey, it's probably not worth the price delta to get X amount more range. We'll have to see. Thanks so much for watching another Out of Spec Reviews video. See you in another one soon. Bye-bye.